remind everyone that the New Hampshire state primaries are tomorrow, September 8th. So there will be both a Democratic and Republican ballot, and you'll be voting on different state positions such as state senate, state representative, executive council, things like that. There's more information on that on the Town of Durham's website. The polling location for Durham is Oyster River High School, which is located at 55 Co Drive in Durham. And the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
What's up, Wildcats? Welcome to episode 8 of the TNH Roundup. My name is Josh Morrill. I'm the executive editor here at the New Hampshire. It is September 7th at 5 p.m., and I'm joined by...
I'm Anna Kate Muncie, and I'm the managing editor.
And I'm Hannah Donahue, and I'm the content editor.
And today we got some pretty important news to get to you guys, so we're just going to go right into it. The first order of business is the Theta Chi frat party that happened last Saturday, August 29th. It was a party of over 100 people, some within the UNH community, and there's been 11 confirmed COVID cases from that party. So, it's the first COVID cluster here at UNH they announced, which is 3 or more cases from the same event or same place at the same time. So everybody from that party is quarantining currently. And if you were in attendance at this party, Health and Wellness has asked to please notify them as soon as possible so they can have you quarantined and contact traced to the best of their ability.
So something that's really come up since this email was sent out to students last night is that this email was sent to us over a week after this event happened. We did receive that email last week saying, hey, there is one sorority member and fraternity member that did test positive. We got that email, but we weren't really told any more information. We weren't told that it came from a party of over 100 people. So it was a bit confusing to know that it's, obviously we don't know this for a fact. The 100 people could have already been contacted. But if there are people who were going to classes all last week and not knowing, that just makes contact tracing a lot more difficult. But it's good that they are communicating with us now that this event happened and that they are getting to the bottom of it, as well as any disciplinary action that will be taking place.
Right, and so last night, a couple of hours after we received the notification from the university about the party and the resulting cluster, University President James Dean sent out an email basically condemning what had happened, and he had kind of some strong words about the results of this gathering. So Dean recounted what had happened at the gathering, and then he said, "Let me be clear. This is reckless behavior and the kind of behavior that undermines our planning and will lead to us switching to a fully remote mode. We have repeatedly asked all members of our community to practice and adhere to public health guidelines to reduce the spread of COVID. Mask wearing, social distancing, no large gathering, etc. And I've been pleased that the overwhelming majority of you are following these guidelines. The August 29th party is reprehensible and will not be tolerated. As soon as we heard of this party at Theta Chi, we started an investigation with the Interfraternity Council. We will be pursuing student conduct charges against the organizers and all students who attended the event. Theta Chi is under interim suspension immediately, as well as any fraternity or sorority or other student organization that behaves in a similar manner, while we conduct the investigation. Until the investigation is complete, there is a moratorium on any in-person gatherings of any size within these groups."
Yeah, and what was not included in those emails or the press release that was sent out was whether this party was broken up or if any police had gone to it just to check on it or anything of that ilk. And it kind of worries me that they send out all these notifications, emails, messages to the students to don't party, don't get in large groups, don't not wear a mask, you have to social distance, all this stuff, and then they don't have any precautionary measures like sending UNH police or Durham police around kind of seeing if anybody's actually not following these guidelines. It's kind of part of the blind hope that we've seen in the past couple months, as they've kind of built this COVID process up for when students come back. And, it happened at Williamson and Christensen, and, it happens again here. So it doesn't, exude confidence in me. It doesn't put confidence in a lot of students. And we've seen that from responses from what we put on Twitter, Instagram. A lot of students are pretty outraged about this.
Yeah, I have to completely agree with you there. I think after this Labor Day weekend, we are really going to start to see, like, this is going to be a true teller of if we're going to be staying on campus or not. It's a holiday weekend, and especially after the news of this coming out Saturday night, it's concerning, because if we don't know if Durham PD or UNH PD are, breaking up these parties, then how are they, like, knowing that they're even being thrown if they're not breaking them up? It just makes things a lot more difficult. And this weekend, if we see within the self-test this week, if we see more positive cases this week and next week, it's really just about to tell us all.
I also just wanted to note there's a little bit of a shift in how the university is going to be reporting positive COVID cases. They announced that starting, I believe they said that either this Tuesday or Wednesday, they're going to be reporting the positive cases daily instead of every few days. And at least for me, that's pretty comforting, just because of what Hannah mentioned with the timeliness factor with this incident at Theta Chi, like not learning about it until well after a week after it happened. Definitely, obviously, maybe the university didn't find out right away, but I think that knowing as soon as possible about where there are clusters or positive cases will be definitely a comfort to students and faculty as well as their families.
Yeah. And a lot of the, issues that our staff has had with these results, or what UNH is publishing, is that we don't know how many active cases there are. And I feel like we'll get a better gauge of that with daily, results. So hopefully we can, as a university, really gauge, where we're at and where we need to be, and kind of go from there. Kind of stemming off, for another university issue that happened this week was the losing of approximately 250 tests the first day of self-testing, which was August 31st. It was this past Monday. And UNH fully opened their UNH COVID lab at Health and Wellness that same day. And we had multiple students that came to us and said that, they went and tried to turn in their tests in the collection boxes, and some of them were full, that they actually had to put them in shoe boxes, which were also full. So they had issues putting them in and turning in their tests. And then eventually they got an email the next day at around 2:00 saying that they had to get retested because their test had been lost.
So on that first day of the university's self-testing program, about 3,000 samples were collected from students across campus, and around 8% of them were compromised, and all of those students, around 250, had to resubmit their tests and redo them.
Yeah, so as someone who tested on the first day, I was very weary about my test. Thankfully, mine was not one of the 8% that was lost. However, my testing time slot was from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And I went to drop mine off at about 1:15. And I walked up to the box in HOCO, and it was already full. Mine didn't have a shoebox on top, but as I was walking up, there was someone coming to empty the collection boxes. And I was worried that they were just emptying them still from the time slot before. But I was like, hey, I went to put it in the box after it had been emptied. And the guy who was collecting them was like, oh, I can just take that. I was like, well, this is for the afternoon testing. He was like, oh yeah, no, I'll just take it. I was like, all right, that's fine, because I didn't know if he was emptying out the stuff in the morning or if it had truly filled up to the brim in the 15 minutes that the time slot had been started. So the university just really needs to take into consideration that there are going to be more popular test drop-off locations than others. So, the one in Hoco or the one in Stillings or Philly, those ones are going to be popular because especially around lunchtime, people are already going there. They're already going to be dropping off their tests or going to get lunch, so they're going to drop off their tests. But when you think about like A-Lot, midday, not a lot of people dropping off tests there. So I think that they've definitely like worked it out since then. Letting people emptying them out like more frequently. So I think that this week should hopefully be a little bit smoother. And I think that like as we said earlier with the daily test results, that'll help too.
Yeah. And I think that the issue was maybe just with one location, because I think, Keegan Demers, who came to us and he was one of the students that had his test lost. He said that Stillings was probably was really bad and that they had to use a shoebox. And I think that might have been the source of it. So I think what they're doing is like you said, they're just filling them or emptying them out more frequently. And because I think once they figured out that shoe boxes and stuff like that had to be used, they probably put a kibosh to that pretty quickly.
I definitely have some questions about the communication from the university to the people both to students and to people kind of managing the collection boxes. It's hard for me to understand why someone would have been instructed to have people just put the tests in a shoebox instead of having them go to another more secure drop-off box. I think having students throw their tests into a shoebox where they can be removed by other students, I think that's inexcusable. I don't understand how that was ever the instruction.
Yeah. And they never really specified what happened. They just said it was like a transfer issue, which I assume whoever picked them up didn't either pick all of them up or lost some of them or something. But they never were really that transparent about it. And the students that came to us who got their test loss, echoed that. And they said that when they went to UNH Innovation, which is where you had to go to get retested in the afternoon and the WIT in the morning, but most of them had to go in the afternoon because the email wasn't sent until the afternoon. So once they got there, they had to wait because there was multiple students in there already getting tested. And it was a pretty long process for them. And they said when they went there to get retested that the people there weren't very open with them about confirming with them how the test got lost, and basically gave them a short answer saying that it was just a glitch in the matrix.
Yeah, and it almost makes us wonder if this first week of the UNH lab being up and running, between that and the lost test issues, if that had to do at all with the delays in testing. So UNH originally committed to having test results to students within 24 to 48 hours. I personally, like I said, I had my first test on Monday, did not get an email about it until midday Saturday. So it is a little bit concerning that these results aren't really giving us like the correct turnaround time, that UNH has had to kind of shift gears a little bit and say, it's not actually going to be 24 to 48 hours, it's going to be a little bit longer. But from what I know, as long as you're not getting a call from, Health and Wellness or the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services saying that you're positive or that you've been in contact with someone who's been positive, to just assume that you're negative. That's kind of what's just been going around since there has been like those delays in testing, and we haven't really gotten any kind of statement or acknowledgement from the university about them taking a lot longer than originally planned. So it has left a lot of students in the dark, not knowing when they're going to be getting their test results, having to still go to class, like worrying that that they might be positive and be like asymptomatic. It's a very stressful time for students, and to not have that communication saying, hey, your test results are going to take longer than expected, it just adds to the student anxiety of being a college student in a pandemic already.
Yeah, and it also adds to faculty anxiety as well, because they don't know if these students are positive or negative, or maybe they don't get their test results back as quick as they want to. And it's all coming from a lot of different places. And UNH is as we've seen, having a little bit of trouble, nailing down everything, which was probably to be expected. But hopefully they learn from this first week and improve on it, and maybe they'll come up with these daily testing results will, things like that, little things will help with it.
I think as students, it would be just nice to receive an email from President Dean or from Chief Dean or just anyone on the testing committee just giving us an answer for the delays and just filling us in on what's going on, just to really kind of soothe the anxiety of people that is happening on campus.
So last Thursday, the Durham Police Department responded to an incident at the Lodges at West Edge, which is an off-campus housing development in Durham. 24-year-old Brian Gwen he dry fired his gun in his apartment, and it actually went through the neighboring wall, the adjacent wall, and hit a woman in the neighboring apartment in the back. So she was transported to Portsmouth Regional Hospital and was treated and was being held for observation. And Gwen was charged with 1 count of felony reckless conduct. His arraignment date hasn't been set yet. And both Gwen and the victim, her identity has not been disclosed, are UNH students.
So for students who are unaware, it is against so for UNH students who are unaware, according to UNH policy, when a student is charged with a felony, they are no longer allowed to take classes until that case is resolved. And I believe his arraignment is not scheduled yet just because of coronavirus concerns.
And in an email from Abigail Donovan, the property manager at the Lodges, when she discussed the event with us, she said that in the light of this, we would like to remind everyone that possession of firearms is not allowed anywhere in our community. Violation of this policy by residents or their guests is in default of their housing contract and may lead to the termination of their lease, among other actions. So they, Brian was not allowed to have a weapon, and she also, and also according to Peter Jekyll of the Lodge's media line, he said that the disciplinary process has started with him. I had something else. Okay.
Her letter, it was in her letter. She didn't speak to us.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're not sure.
I'll just, what did I say before that? I just said,
Just say that was from a letter she sent to residents.
Thanks so much for watching this episode of TNH Roundup. You can follow us on all social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at the New Hampshire. And if there's anything you'd like us to address or any questions you'd like answered, you can send us an email at tnhstaff@gmail.com or send us a DM on any of those platforms, and we will see you next week.